Yeah, New York City, Friday night street jam. Funk Master Flex, long shot, my man Big Dennis. And in the house is my man with the ill, hectic underground buzz that it's like a flame of fire, and I'm feeling your whole movement. All right, I just gotta let you know that. We got Biggie Smalls in the house.
Yeah, representing Brooklyn to the fullest.
Biggie.
When I first met Biggie and I first got to hear him, he reminded me of Big Daddy Kane. It was like the reincarnation of Big Daddy Kane.
We always called him B.I.G, and that was kind of it. And everybody just called him Chris. Some people called him Fat Chris. But I think before we even knew he was rapping, all his old friends that used to go to Clavis school with him, they say he used to call himself MC Quest. So, you know, but this is before the B.I.G and Biggie Smalls. I heard that was his name before that.
I first met Biggie, I think it was the Lyricist Lounge. My song Flojo was already out and ringing off, and I went over there to give the vinyl to the DJ, and I had saw Biggie on stage. Puffy was with him too, and Biggie battled about 10 people, like 10, 15 people. He was killing them all. And I was like, man, this guy's dope. I was in the back of the room. I introduced myself to him, and then we became tight friends ever since that.
I met Biggie at an MCA Records party that I believe I was DJing. And he was slated to be the next rapper coming out of that label. He was a student of the game, a fan. Like, he knew Radioheads, he knew artists. So the conversation was cool. It wasn't long, but I was DJing, but it was like, it's a lot of love.
For a long time, we didn't know Big rapped until we went to like a party one day and he freestyled over the microphone, and that was the first time like people from my neighborhood actually knew. But 50 Grand and Mr. C and them all knew because he used to do the mixtape and the freestyles at 50 Grand house.
Microphone murderer, mass made him maker. B.I.G is on the mic, called the Undertaker. Make an appointment, schedule an interview. Because you know what big man's about to do? 50 Grand on the technique at the right peak. Brothers want to hear the words big man speak. The microphone I'm ripping. The burner got the clipping. Slamming MCs like Scottie Pippen.
Well, I remember when I first started hearing about Biggie around the time that Party and Bullshit came out.
And when I heard that Party and Bullshit, I was like, damn, he's nice.
He just quickly became this like phenom that everyone was talking about and how great he was going to be. And Party and Bullshit was a pretty big song. I mean, people loved that song. It was on the Who's the Man soundtrack, and people were really into it.
Biggie never said a whack rhyme. Biggie never said a weak verse. Every single verse he would kill, matter if it was on the R&B feature, if it was on his music, it was on everything. His thing was just pure excellence.
You know, when we was in the studio, it wasn't really like work because you never saw him with a pen. You really saw him with a pad because, you know, at that time he started to really master, you know, the music thing to where he stopped using the pen and paper to where, you know, the studio was kind of more like a hangout until he went and actually got in the booth. So a lot of times we'd be sitting there smoking weed and drinking and be conversating and cracking jokes and chilling, and the beat would be playing real loud, and after 2 hours he'd just get up and go, yo, call the engineer, tell him I'm ready.
I just remember the hype starting to grow for Biggie, and then him starting to make the mixtape appearances. The songs started popping up on mixtapes. I remember hearing the What when it was just called Fuck the World with him and Meth.
Early on, we knew that Big was dope. We knew that he had something special. I mean, it was just evident. It was so refreshing to hear him rap, and it was so hip hop. And I think that's what Puff loved about it. And there was just one thing that sort of, you know, was a question in regards to signing Big, and that was, what are we going to do about his image? And what image would this guy have? And I told him, make him the blackest, biggest, sexiest motherfucker out. That's it, period. And sure enough, Coogee sweater Big, you know, Versace Big, the hats, his whole persona, the whole Big Papa vibe, you know, was birthed from that.
And then I remember when Puff got his deal with Arista Records when he left Uptown, like that was the whole thing. And one of the first promo items that they sent out was a Big Mac. it was a Big Mac, like Craig Mack, B.I.G, little thing. So, and that was prior to Biggie's first album dropping. So it was all in that zone. You got a name for your album yet?
Yeah, the album's called Ready to Die.
Oh,
15 cuts, straight hardcore, breaking down doors.
A lot of people don't know that
Tight on the map.
Ready to Die wasn't even the original name of the album. The original name of the album was going to be called The Teflon Don. That's what Biggie wanted to call the album, The Teflon Don, because at that time, back in the 90s, that's when John Gotti was famous here in New York City. So Big wanted to call the album The Teflon Don, and Diddy kind of stepped in and was like, nah, man, we can't go with that title. We got to cater to everybody around the country, everybody worldwide, and kind of convince Big to go with Ready to Die. And the whole concept behind the album of, you know, Big coming from the streets and, you know, the hustling and going through what he's going through, and that, you know, he's ready to die.
The only thing that I remember Big being hesitant about was when creating the songs. Because he wanted to, you know, he was bars, he was like hood, rap, and straight hip hop. So Puff brought that, you know, brought melodies to the table and showed him how to really make a great song. And that's what Puffy was good at as an A&R. So the only thing that I remember Big being hesitant about was like the song shit. He thought that was kind of corny sometimes. Like, you know, he was like, pfft.
I bought Ready to Die on CD because the vinyl didn't come out originally. It came out on CD first. Bought the CD and just sat there and listened. And I remember sitting in my parents' living room listening on their stereo, just going track by track and being like, whoa, every one of these is good. Like, you could tell right away listening to Ready to Die that this was a guy who was going to be really, really special.
Before Biggie, there was just, New York was just underground hardcore hip hop. Biggie found a way to make music where you could do a hardcore album but still have those R&B songs that are smash hits.
Just the content of just what he was writing and what he was creating at the time just made him that much more special.
That first album was so authentic, so natural, so magical. You know, I remember the days in the studios. In the studio, I remember like just the whole process, and it was super special because it was just us. It was just the Bad Boy family, and you can't recreate that.
This is an artist from Brooklyn. He came out when shit was rough, right? Like when it was gritty, I'm hardcore. He's a heavy dude. He's calling himself Black and Ugly. He's heavy, but he's saying the freshest, flyest shit. He's making fat niggas get good shirts. He's making niggas that's drinking 40s get Alizé. And like, you understand what I'm saying? He's changing the pulse of New York City, like no one has ever done like before.
I saw the change from nitty gritty Brooklyn, hoodie, Carl Kanai, you know, Timberlands, to Coogee, Gators, and suits.
It was almost like, you know, shining the diamond off and then the real diamond shining through. He was raw talent, and then he learned how to just make it into like professional, to where it sounded like a beginning and an end to the song. It sounded like a complete, you know, work of art, you know what I'm saying?
When I first met Big in late 91, early 92, you know, he still was, you know, at the end of his teenage, you know, years, you know, becoming 20, 21, whatever. So he still had a little bit of the adolescence in him. He's also was still a little rough around the edges as far as how I wanted to handle things. So let's say, for instance, when it came down to doing business with Puff early on, he would always be like, yo, see, man, you know, I don't even want to talk to Duke. You just talk to that dude and, you know, we'll settle it, you know. He never really wanted to deal with the business side early on. But then as his success progressed, then he'd start to get to learn the business, whether it was me showing him the business or his manager, Mark Pitts, and so on and so forth, and lawyers. Once we kind of instilled the business side into him, then he became more business minded.
in the movie Notorious, when they're in Sacramento, California, I did that event. That was my party. I was like, you need to perform that. What was the record? Who Shot You?
Separate the weak from the obsolete, hard to concrete. It's all, nigga. Fuck all that bickering beef. And I was like, oh! I played that maybe 1,000, if it's possible, 1,001 day. I had the system in the truck, and this shit was just ringing. And you had Puff on there as we proceed. I was like, oh my God.
You need to perform that Who Shot You? Like, this is hip hop. Motherfuckers gonna love that. The room in there is a hip hop room. It ain't no East Coast, West Coast. Motherfuckers wanna hear that shit, that hot shit. So I hosted that show.
I think Who Shot You was aimed at LL. I think, if I'm not mistaken. For what reason, I don't know. But honestly, from what I know, Big never made a diss record. There was no true intentions of him ever making a diss record. And if he was, it was probably thought about briefly, because at the end of the day, man, like, you gotta understand, Big had a lot of love for Pac. And I know vice versa. And from what I was gathering, and by doing this now 20 years, you know, from what I know is like, there was talks of Pac deading everything, like right before he died, and him coming to a space where he was like, you know what, we gotta stop this. Like, we gotta make sure we come back to, you know, being friends or whatever. So I know that for sure was supposed to happen.
He didn't make no response records. He wasn't doing no interviews talking crazy about, you know, what was going on. He just kind of just was trying to let it just boil over and just continue just to push and do music and just keep coming out with stuff and keep working. So, you know, that wasn't nothing we thought about. We was thinking of business. Like, let's go out there and do what we got to do. Let's go out there. He wanted to finish up on Puff album, and then he wanted to go out there and promote Life After Death. That was the main focus. So, you know, worrying about that type of situation wasn't on our mind at that time.
Notorious, bring it, baby.
I make your mouthpiece obese like Della Reese. When I release, you lose teeth like little seeds. Player please, blood flood your dungarees.
Yeah.
And that's just the half of my war path.
Now keep in mind, in the meantime, between albums, he'd done tons of features. He was on everybody's record. So the momentum had been steady going from 94 to 97. It had been like a 3-year process of him continuing to just be a big part of the scene. Somebody's Gotta Die was crazy. Then I heard on the radio in DC, they played Notorious Thugs. I heard Notorious Thugs on the radio.
So probably the one I probably was more like crazy for was probably when he did the Bone Thugs song. You know, because that was the first time he didn't want everybody in the room, because he really wanted to like focus on that and master that, because he knew what he was doing. Like, this was like a test for him. And you know, that was the first time he made everybody leave the room and sat in there and did that verse. And then when we came back in there, after like about 30 minutes, and heard that verse to Notorious Thugs, I mean, I was blown away. Like, don't get it twisted. I grew up with Big, but outside of who he was personally, I was a fan of him as a music artist.
I got to produce an original version of You're Nobody to Somebody Kills You, and you know, shout out to Mr. C. He always plays the original version, my version, which I thought was always fantastic.
As I was in the studio with Biggie Smalls when he made Hypnotize, and I never forget that every time that song come on, I'd be like, damn, I was there, man. I was in, and I don't care where, I could be in Dubai, I could be anywhere, Africa, anywhere in the world. When Hypnotize come on, I'd be like, yo, I was there, man. Like, I watched him do this. Like, I was like a fan, not a fan, this man hanging out with him in the studio. But I was just like, you know, to this day, when I hear it, I'm just like, wow.
The main thing that I always mention, and that I think the biggest takeaway from that video, is when you saw Biggie smiling on the boat, because we had never seen him like show teeth smiling like that.
Life After Death was and is, I think, the best double album ever made. It doesn't miss. That album's incredible, and obviously, you know, being able to hear where Big was going to be and get that album was just so bittersweet. Like it was just painful, but at the same time, it was like, it's amazing. Like, it was so many mixed emotions at the time. It was, you know, it was tough.
His first album was bananas. But that second album to me is like a work of art. That's some shit like God knew he wasn't gonna be here. It's named Life After Death. Like, come on, like, it's just too much that's way too deep, I think, for the mortal mind to even really understand. Like, we just take it for granted. Who the fuck makes a double album on their sophomore that's bulletproof? Who?
The hype machine for Life After Death was, of course, huge. I mean, the fact that the album's called Life After Death and he just passed away and the album's still coming out and it's a double album, it was a lot. It was a really big deal. I got into a big fight with my dad because I wanted to go to Tower Records at midnight on a school night to go pick it up, but everyone was talking about it. And it was just, I mean, the next day at school, everyone was playing that CD. Everyone. And keep in mind, I'm from the suburbs, you know. I was going to high school in Bethesda, Maryland. Everyone was playing that CD. It was such an iconic moment.
It's eerie because, you know, it's like, you know, look at Big what he was saying. It's like, was he predicting what was happening? But he's right. Look at how many times, you know, you're really nobody until somebody kills you. And then, you know, it's like people now want to pay homage. People now want to pay respect, you know, so I hope people could start to break those barriers.
I think the biggest regret was I was scared to go on his funeral because I guess it's the same old story. You don't want to see him like that. So I went to him in front of his building where he grew up and I lit a candle, you know, in front of everybody, and just that was that. But I was just like, I didn't want to see Biggie like that. It was real emotional, and certain things, you know, really, you know, bother me about, you know, because Biggie didn't deserve to pass away like that. You know, he was a beautiful person. He never really looked for that beef or nothing like that. You know what I'm saying? So, being that I was around, I know that a lot of insides of it to where it's just sad, man, because he didn't want to do all that, you know what I'm saying? And unfortunately, you know, he fell on the sword.
When Big died, New York hip hop, they lost a great, they lost a legend, they lost a pioneer, they lost the icon, they lost the king of New York. Hip hop lost a great, they lost a legend, man. They lost the one that put us back where we supposed to be, the one that would have still been holding us down to this day like Hov is.
Biggie was the out and out king of New York in the time when hip hop was exploding. So to lose that person, you know, even in the era of Rakim and Kane, there wasn't a definitive number one. There was always sort of like, Rakim, yeah, pretty much, but, you know, Kane's right there. No, Biggie was number one.
We felt like we had to, you know, salute him for what he's done and acknowledge him. There's no picking up that weight. Nobody picks up the king's crown and say, I'm gonna hold this down. Like, nobody, you don't pick up the king's crown.
We made
like,
love
you know
Big
what I mean?
Papa. This the salute.
Yeah, you make our love Big Papa to acknowledge, you know, that you know what you've seen. Like, you don't try to say, yeah, we picking up the king's crown and going on with the thing. Like, nah, we're just devastated. There's the whole rest of the city. And we made I Love Big Papa as a tribute to our big bro, somebody who did something for us that he didn't have to do. G Code.
The rap game is missing substance. You got the Jay-Z's, you got the Nas, you got the Drakes, you got the J. Cole's, you got the Kendrick Lamars, but it's still not enough. It's still not enough as far as substance.
Big was the classiest dude I've ever met. Like, not like, you know what I mean? He had a lot of class. Like, he embodied shit that you didn't see street dudes really embody, as far as, like, if that's your man and he's with you, I'm gonna treat him the same. Like, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, everything I'm doing, if you're around me, you could do. Word. Like, you know, I mean, I'm drinking, you drinking, I'm eating, you eating. But to people he didn't have to be like that, like, cause he didn't have to be like that with us. So me, I think he just had a good eye. I think he was a hip hop connoisseur and just like the fucking classiest dude you could meet, and he was hysterical. He was funny.
Always a funny dude, just always cracking jokes, snapping on people, or, you know, he didn't even care if you snapped on him. You know, you can call him an ugly, fat bastard or whatever you want to call him. He embraced that, you know, because then he'll come back at you and snap back at you. So one of the biggest things about Big that people didn't really get to see or know about him is how funny he was. Like, he was just really a funny cat.
I remember going to the airport and there'd be like these really heavy girls, you know, like you know, not the most beautiful, whatever, but he would make them feel beautiful. They'd be like, hey, Biggie. He'd be like, come here, baby girl. Give me a healthy thing. And I'd be like, what'd you call her? He said, healthy thing. So I said, oh, okay. And he would say that and embrace them, and he would give them a big hug. You know, these girls were big like him. And he made them feel beautiful, and he made them feel loved.
You know, we started making a Fat Joe Big album. We did like 4 songs in. To be honest with you, it was like really going hard. Like it was like almost like, it wasn't almost like, it was like dissing Tupac. Like it was like Fat Joe and Biggie just blacking out, you know, going crazy, you know, on some New York. And you know, he passed away, so that was the end of that.
He wanted to do 5 albums. Like Born Again was already a title that he already had before he passed. You know what I mean, we didn't think of that title, After Life After Death. He already had that title. Like he was gonna do like these, you know, his album was gonna be like movies, you know, Ready to Die, then it was Life After Death, then it was Born Again, and then he was going, we didn't know what else he was gonna do from there because he was already trying to venture out and doing projects for us. You know what I mean, my project, Lil' Kim project, another Junior Mafia project. He wanted Klepto to do an album. He was trying to sign Charlie. He was gonna sign Cam. He was gonna sign Nori. So Big was really trying to get into that mogul part. So he didn't want to sit around and do too many albums, but who would have knew? You know what I mean? He probably would have still been here and still recorded. How many times Hov said he was gonna retire and then still came back and did albums, did projects? I think Big would have did that same, I think he would have did the same thing because he loved the music so much. I don't think he would have been able to stay away from it.
I think the thing I missed the most about Biggie was his vision. He wanted everything from big and tall stores to restaurants to, you know, he wanted to put together the commission with Jay-Z and Charlie Baltimore. Like, think about what if that would have happened. Like, there's so many what ifs, you know? Could Big have been the president of the United States? You know what I'm saying? Would he have had a talk show? Would he have owned a basketball team? Like, those are the things I miss. Yeah, those are the things I miss.
What up, it's Notorious B.I.G. from Brooklyn, NY. Nobody represents New York like Hot 97.
Now, technically, is it now Biggie or Big or B.I.G.?
I mean,
or it's how you feeling?
It's on the album, on the cover, it will say the Notorious B.I.G.
Okay.
No, because some little lame 14-year-old cruising
corny ass.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, calling himself Biggie Smalls. No, we don't know the true meaning, but hey, it's all good. We're trying to make some paper.
Trying to tell you, in case you just turned us on, we got my man Biggie Smalls in the house.
Yeah.
Notorious B.I.G. I know you're gonna run out and snatch up the album. Now, what label you on, Big Daddy?
I'm on Puff label, Bad Boy Arista.
Okay.
They kicking plenty cheddar.
So, and now we also got your man coming through, Craig
no
Mack,
doubt.
right?
Craig Mack gonna come through, represent.
All right.
Hope he here for this little freestyle session. We can show how the bad boys do it, you know?
So, in case you just turned us on, Biggie Smalls in the house.
No
We're gonna come out of a commercial and get ugly on Hot 97.
Yeah.
All right, you know what I'm saying?
JM in the house, Junior Mafia represent.